Today is November 2023, and we're going to talk with Brian White about some of the history of the EMS service. And of course, being old school, I just call it ambulance. Now it's called EMS. And I'm going to start by putting up from 3 photos from the past that they have in one of their books. And in 1989, is that good? 1989, the money from several fall fishing festivals, then called the Legion Fall Fishing Festival, was used to purchase this ambulance that looks like a big van. And in front of there are members of the fishing festival. That did us in good, and that was the very first one. In Red Rock, they got their first one, I'm 1994. And I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, Darkies. Saracen in there is now Darkies Robinson, and she is still active.
Yes.
The only one in that photo that is still active on the...
Yes.
Right. And Darkies is the mayor of Red Rock. And then this photo, which we don't have a year on, was one of the ones that has the first group. Brian, come and stand over here and tell me who they are.
This is Richard Hasty, Ross Chessel, Randy Bull, myself, Miriam Nikinen, Cliff Grove, Brad Larson, Bill Millen, Marianne Booker, and Janice Maynard.
Okay, very good picture, and it really shows the fact that I guess you're the only one left.
Yes.
Working still as an EMS person.
Yes.
Okay, you got an idea about what year this might have been, Brian?
That would have been probably 94, 95, somewhere in that area.
Okay. I think the pictures are important. They sure show the history when I see all the scrapbooks you've got.
Oh yeah, I had to keep track of them because some of the newer people, I mean, I'm the only one left, so
Right.
I realize what they are.
Right.
Some of the other medics that have been coming through saying, what's this for?
Right, right.
And I think I'm missing one binder too. I can't put my fingers on it, so
That's
not sure
good
where it went
because
to.
you're right. That's the history, and I know from keeping the pictures there, that's the history that we need for
Yeah.
that. So Brian, maybe just tell us. I don't even know how you ended up in Nipigon, in your family.
My dad worked for Ontario Hydro, and we got transferred up here in 1974. I did high school in Niprock, did my grade 13. Finished there, started at the plywood mill. I worked there for 21 years. I got involved in volunteering for the ambulance service through a friend, Michael Ewing. He's still active, and I think he's in Dryden now. And I started volunteering for the ambulance service in December of '84. Kept up all of my qualifications throughout the years, kept up with all the training, and then at one point I decided at the plywood mill I was up as high as I could go, and I decided to make the jump full-time to paramedic for the city of
So
Thunder
getting back to then as a volunteer, were the volunteers ever given a stipend or paid at all, or was strictly volunteer?
we got paid. If we did a call, I believe the last rate was anything under 20 kilometers, we got $25 per call. And if it was over 20 kilometers, we got $35. And for our volunteer hours, when we weren't working, we got a sum total of $2.10 an hour for working.
Wow. So in this picture that we were talking about, the colored one, is that volunteer or those are paid?
The only 2 paid people there would be Richard and Marianne. Richard
Oh.
was the boss, Marianne was second in command.
Okay.
The rest of us
the
were
others
volunteers.
volunteers.
Yeah.
Wow. Big commitment, really.
Yes.
Big commitment. And I just can't imagine from then to now the difference in the calls. So I suppose. So would all of these people had to have gone for training?
Actually, back then, to get involved as a volunteer, you just needed a Class F driver's license, a radio license, first aid, and CPR. That was it to start as a volunteer in the ambulance service.
So what area would you have covered in those early years?
Basically, the areas that we cover now. We went from, well, back then Nipigon covered right out to Weemet Canyon,
Right.
and far down is Gravel River, and north of us, and all the back roads in between. So
Right, that's an important comment. Back roads. Back roads for
Yes.
sure, because that's where sometimes those things happen. So it's interesting to see though, that old photo and the new ones, and to me, the biggest difference is likely going to be the number of calls and the extent now that the fire department is also involved. Would they have been involved in those days?
back then, yeah, they responded to us and helped out on those calls.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So just, you walk us through some of the things you remember and some of the big changes and,
Some of the big changes, like I tell people, like when I first started, basically all the equipment in our ambulances is basically the same thing I started back in 1984, except they've gotten better. But now we also have our drugs that we can give and our defibs for helping people out.
Right.
But the equipment is still the same, but they've just gotten better. Like right now we have a hydraulic stretcher that we don't need to pick up.
right,
It's all hydraulic. Put it in the back, push a button, it retracts the legs, we push it in. When I first started, we put the patient on the stretcher, wheel him out to the ambulance, lower the stretcher to the ground, bend down, pick the stretcher up, do a side shuffle to put the person in the ambulance.
you think there was injuries in those days for the workers?
There were some in other services, but we never had any.
Well, that was good.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that business, I know when you're saying picking up like that
Yeah.
is hard.
Oh yes. Yeah.
And I remember seeing a photo of them doing an exercise where they went up those stairs in the curling club
Yep.
and thinking, oh, what a job.
Yep.
And if I'd been on the stretcher, I would have been worried I was going to slide off
Well,
because of the angle.
yeah. Well, even today, like when we move a patient up and down stairs, they have a tendency to reach out and grab things. It won't change, but that's just common response to something that you don't want. You reaching out to try to grab something.
Right,
Yeah.
right. How many people work for the ambulance service here now?
In Nipigon, we have 4 full-time people and 2 part-time people.
Okay. Red Rock has?
4 full-time and a couple part-time. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So things are changing, but give us an idea of some of the other changes, such as the highway calls compared now to then, or
The highway calls, it
volume?
volume, it goes in spurts. I mean, there are some times where you run off your butt going back and forth to MVCs, or you're working in the ditches or the snows. The amount really hasn't changed.
Okay,
But with the 4-laning of the highway, that's cut down a lot.
okay,
I mean, there's still the occasional one where people not paying attention to the road conditions or other traffic, but
right,
to me, the highway is 4-laning highways made it a lot easier and a lot safer
right,
for traffic.
right. Especially 11, 17. Now
Yeah.
we just need to work on 11.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
for sure.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking of this, I'm going to say, do you think there are more transports involved in the accident? Because that's all we ever hear right now is transports. And so being there, you're the ones that's responding. Do you think it's more?
It might be up slightly, like the number of transports. Well, as everybody knows, it travels Highway 11.
Mm-hmm.
The transports on Highway 11 are just phenomenal
Right.
amounts.
Right.
But it's increased a little bit. But even years ago, we still had transports and cars. And
Right. So when you're talking of 4 full-time, is that 24/7?
right now, no, we're still doing the on-call.
Okay.
Like we do 7. We started, my partner and I, we started Thursday night at 7. So we do 7 hours on call at home and then 7 hours at the base.
Oh, okay.
And then we keep that up until we're finished tonight at 7. So
Okay.
so basically for 4 days straight we're available to respond to calls.
Okay. Okay. So that's a busy time. So while you're waiting up at the base, what are you doing?
Well, we have lots of stuff to do. Like we do our inventory and our drug checking out all our equipment to make sure it's still running and up to snuff.
Okay.
And there's other paperwork to do. And there's sometimes we're on transfers going to Thunder Bay, taking people up for tests and returning them.
Oh, okay. So you do that.
Oh, yes, yes. I mean, we do have the handy van or the handy transit here,
Right.
but they can't take anybody. They have certain guidelines, what I'm not sure of, but we still take people up for tests
Okay.
and treatments and returns.
Okay. Okay. And I was thinking of the drug scene when you were speaking of keeping your drugs up there. Just explain to people what you're allowed to do then with if you're getting called out for a drug.
If we need it, we have certain drugs that we use for different situations. Like for overdoses, we have Narcan.
Right.
We have glucagon. We have glucose. We have ASA.
So you are qualified to sort of diagnose which one they're going to need.
If they fall into our protocols, we can give our medications out in the field. And if we figure that a patient might need it, we can contact our base hospital doctor, which is out of Thunder Bay.
Okay.
And he can give us orders above and beyond what we have.
Okay.
But we have our strict guidelines for what we can do.
Okay.
Because we are working under a licensed doctor out of Thunder Bay.
Okay. So has your communications improved since when you started?
Yes. When we first started, we were actually dispatched out of the hospital. The old
Right.
hospital. The nurses would dispatch us for ambulance 911 calls.
Oh, okay.
Well, back then it wasn't 911, it was 3388.
Right.
But now we were dispatched out of Thunder Bay.
So when somebody's calling 911,
It goes to Thunder
it
Bay.
goes to Thunder Bay.
Yeah, and then they either page us out or get us on the radio over out mobile.
Okay. That's interesting because I was thinking the radio communications has sure changed.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
the system has got a lot better.
Right.
Yeah.
Faster.
Faster, yeah, and more efficient too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe just think back and give us a example of some of maybe funny things or horrendous things that you can remember, because I'm sure you have enough memories to fill a couple of books.
Yeah, there's been some very unique calls. Like one of our volunteers actually went inside a snow house to pull a person out that had twisted his knee. I've taken a patient out through a window because we couldn't get our stretcher in around the corner of a house. I remember going up a set of stairs with a patient on a backboard with my arms over my head to keep him level.
All different kinds of things.
Oh, different kinds of
Those are-
things. Yep.
Yeah. I would imagine every scene is different.
Yes, and that's what I enjoy about the job. Doesn't matter what it is. It could be the same call or same type of call, but there's always something different that happens.
Right. No 2 days are the same.
No, never.
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 Okay. Any very ones that stand out as, really bad scenes that we've had? I know you don't want to.
I don't. Sorry, I really can't say about any of that. But there are. I've been through basically everything that they can throw at me over
Right.
the years.
Right. But I'm just thinking from accidents to fires to crashes type of things that are varied. The ambulance people get to go to all of them.
Yeah.
Right. You get to go to all of them.
Like we have no choice. Like if our pager goes off, we respond.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So 911 calling made a difference too then when you said it didn't used to be 911?
Yes, it did. It made a difference because people sometimes were calling the base to get an ambulance, and then we'd have to call our dispatch to say, hey, we need to respond to this call.
Right.
And they say, well, get them to call us so we can get the paperwork and everything else going.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's a lot more efficient now.
Yes,
anyway,
it is.
For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So over the years, I'm just trying to think, does your complement change? Like, do people leave and
Yeah.
go and come, or they move on, or what?
We have quite a few turnovers. Like some of our part-time people that we hire, or the city hires, are from Southern Ontario, and they'll stay up here until they can find a job closer to home, which I
Okay.
don't blame them,
Right.
to be
right.
closer to home, friends
Okay.
and family. But there is quite a
Big
few different
turnover.
changeovers. Yeah.
Right.
Like when I first started, the part-time list was long, and the full-time was here, and now we're backwards. Full time is massive compared to our part time.
Oh, okay.
Well, we have quite a few. We have a few different bases now. Have gone 24/7.
Okay.
They run two crews 24/7.
Wow.
I think Longlac, Geraldton, Kakabeka is gone. Shunya's sort of there,
Right.
and they want to try to get some more because the call volume is going up.
Right.
So-
Right. So Nipigon's is pretty steady then.
Yes. Yeah.
And of course, we are at the junction of the highway, so
Oh yeah.
it makes a difference.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's what's another unique thing about it. Is anybody going across Canada has to come through our stretch of
Right.
the traffic. So
Right.
as you don't know what you're going to run into till you
Right.
get to the scene.
Right. People from across Canada and I suppose other parts of the world.
Yeah.
Lots of times.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, how about animal calls?
I've done a few car versus moose.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you think it's changed? Everybody's talking about the disappearance of the deer right now and the moose and
Actually, I don't think we have had a moose collision car in this area
this
or
year.
deer in this year.
That's good.
Yes.
Oh
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
I just know everybody's talking about the reduction in the animals. So
Oh yeah, there definitely is. But I noticed a big difference too when the MTO stopped using lots of salt and put down the liquid because the animals would come out to the side of the road for the salt. But with that liquid, it was a different story.
Oh, that's an interesting thought. I hadn't even
Yeah.
thought about that. It makes a difference.
But I was told that the liquid doesn't really do what it's supposed to do because there's a certain temperature frame you have to work it in.
right,
So
right. So we'll end up going salt all the time.
yeah, more than likely.
Yeah. Anyway, just interesting because I've known of a couple of people just recently. They didn't hit them here, but they've had a collision with a
Yeah.
deer, and I'm just thinking it hasn't been here. We haven't heard of any.
No, not that I know of in the area.
Very good. Okay.
Maybe transports hits one that we don't get called to because they just run it over and keep on going. So
Yeah. That's not so good. Anyway, just give me an idea why you have so many books here. Is this something you did or something that's required?
actually, it's something that the volunteers did back when Marianne and Jan were probably one of the ones that kept the books up to snuff.
Okay.
It was just little quirks here and little things about our service over the years.
Right.
Newspaper clippings,
I can see that.
pictures
Lots
of
clippings.
pictures of some Christmas parties that we used to have together at the base when we were all volunteers.
Okay. Just nice to have, though.
Yes, very nice to
Now,
have,
as
and
you
memories.
Right. Just for looking back and seeing what things you
Yep.
did. And obviously lots of them, for sure. I often think that as a reporter, when I covered things, I always used to think, is it wise to be covering it or isn't it?
Yeah.
And so I just see you have some pictures of accidents and
Yes.
that type of thing.
But just accidents, no patients.
Right. The only patients I ever had was when you had exercises.
Yep.
I can't remember what we called it, emergency exercises. And
Yes.
we've had a couple of big ones in
Yeah.
Nipigon.
Yeah, we used
That,
had that one over here at where the Esso station used to be, the
Yes.
gas leak.
yes.
We had one out by Red Rock Corner.
And actually, we had one down at the curling club corner.
Yep. And we had one out
And-
the pipeline one
Oh,
a few years ago.
And we had one in Georgia in the schoolyard.
Yep.
I remember all the kids being all doctored up there for that. But
Yeah.
anyway, a lot of people have gone through Nipigon as ambulance EMS people.
Yep.
And we're very thankful to that. We're lucky that we had that. And maybe started by the Legion, I don't know.
I'm not sure how it got started.
No, me neither. Except I think those men that were on there at the time were looking for something that needed to be done in the community.
Yep.
And I would think that an ambulance or that kind of service was something that was
Oh,
really
definitely.
required.
Definitely.
Yeah, for sure. We're back with Brian White, and a total different topic. You can see he's got a uniform on, but Brian has lived here a long time, and his dad became very famous in Nipigon as the landfill operator. And I just wanted to touch base with Brian because I think it's a unique story that Murray was, I don't know, he was the main character
Oh,
for
he was
how
a character.
many years?
He was a character.
How do you think he ended up at the landfill?
Well, he worked for Ontario Hydro, and he worked 35 years, and he was 55 years old, so he took early retirement. And my dad was a man who always wanted to be busy and active, so he applied for the town job, and he got operating the dump.
Do you think there was a man before him? I tried to think, and I can't remember if there was a man before him.
Yes, Hilscher.
Of course, Emil Hilscher.
Emil Hilscher,
Right,
yeah.
right. Okay, so your dad got the job,
Yep.
and right away.
Oh yeah, he's always been a character. Every time he went out there, he had a different joke for you, or a different funny story, and he just kept people entertained. He used to take our dog out there and keep him entertained too at the dump. But every time somebody come out, he had a different story for everybody, and he did lots for people too.
Right.
Because I can remember him pulling bikes out of the dump, setting them aside, fixing them up, and if somebody needed a bike, they came and picked it up and took it home.
Well, when you talk about a bike, I used to take my class out there, and I've got a picture of two of them riding those bikes
Yeah.
all the way down the hill to the road to bring them back to school. And they were serviceable, you know.
Yep.
The kids rode them all.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Dad made sure if it went out, but the guarantee ended at the gate. There was no guarantee past the gate. That's what he always used to say. Anything you took out of the dump, guarantee ended at the gate.
Right. But he also then was known because at home he had a nice collection of Murray's Market items.
Oh yes, yes, yeah. He'd bring stuff home to the garage and stick it in the garage or in the house. And Mom would end up throwing it out the next week. And
But I know people would call him up because they knew that he'd be able to get them
Yep.
this or that or a part.
oh yeah, people would call him up and say, "Hey, you keep an eye out for this or keep an eye out for that." I think my dad was actually one of the first people who recycled in Nipigon, because he was used to take aluminum out of the dump and copper and melt it down, take it to Thunder Bay in this truck,
Oh,
and drop it off at the scrapyard dealer.
oh, that was fortunate then.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, he was a busy man right up until he passed away.
Right.
He worked as a guard at the OPP station also,
Okay.
on call, so
Okay.
yeah, he always kept busy.
No, I just remember him. It's always he's the one you remember
Yeah.
from the landfill
Oh, yeah.
site there. We called it the dump in those days,
Yeah.
didn't we? We weren't fancy and called it the landfill.
Yeah.
It was just called the dump.
Yeah, he was well known in the hydro too, because I had a job interview with Ontario Hydro. It was for a first operator. So I sat down in the interview, and the first question out of the guy's mouth is, "Are you related to Murray White?" I says, "I'm not sure of how I want to answer that. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?" He was well known
Right.
after 35 years. So
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So where did he come from originally?
originally he was born on the CN line north of Cochrane. He worked in Kirkland Lake. That's where he met Mum and got married in Kirkland Lake.
Okay.
And then we moved to Mattawa.
Right.
And when he in Mattawa, he had a choice between Nipigon or Toronto on a transfer. I'm glad he picked Nipigon, to be honest, because we would have both gone nuts in the city, because he liked going outdoors fishing
Right. Right.
and in the bush too. So did Mum. So
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Well, I mean, even your mom was well known because, I
Yep.
mean, your mom was so active in the church and in the community. So
Yep.
you come from a family of excellent volunteers,
Yeah.
Brian,
Yeah.
that they were involved in so much.
yeah, I think that's where I got my dedication for what I do. If I do
Right.
something, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it right.
We call it a work ethic today.
Yes.
We
Yeah.
call it a work ethic. But, I mean, your mom, Marguerite, was so well known at the church for keeping books. Nobody can keep
Oh.
books like Marguerite could. And
Yeah. Well, when we first moved up there, she started working at Edmar Motors as a bookkeeper.
Oh, did she?
Yeah, and she got in there and she found out that the books hadn't really been done for 5 years before she got there, and she had it up to snuff within 6 months.
Wow.
No calculator.
No, I know.
She did everything by mind.
Yep.
She used to do our taxes at home
Right.
without a calculator.
Oh, I can remember how active she was like
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Very, very fortunate, eh?
Yeah.
For sure. For
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. And she often talked about relatives. I know the girls that didn't know whether they like coming to Nipigon or not.
Yeah.
Because different atmosphere, right?
Yeah, they're all out in BC. So.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
No, I think your mom and dad were excellent citizens of Nipigon and well remembered, especially your dad for the dump and your mom for the church. And
Yep.
I'm sure your mom was involved in other organizations. Was she involved in the museum or the?
Yeah, she was on the museum board.
I was going to say.
Yeah, she was on the museum board for 4 years or 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah, and
So-
she did a lot of other bookkeeping too. She helped Gordy Walters and Sam
Scarfo.
Chicatino.
Oh, Chicatano.
When they opened up their garage where Alan's place is now,
Okay.
right across from the car wash.
Right.
That Gordy and Sam ran that for a while.
That was Scarfo, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah, Sam
Sorry.
Scarfo. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
anyways, she did the books there too.
Okay.
Yeah.
And bookkeepers, and it's interesting you're saying that because I just been talking to somebody and said, we can hardly find a bookkeeper today.
Yeah.
There aren't people who are interested in doing
it,
the books. Yeah. Excellent career to
Yep.
get into if somebody's really interested.
Oh yeah, definitely is. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to touch a little bit on that. I think it's a lighter side to an interview that
Yep, I appreciate it.
took advantage of anyway. Because
No problems,
Your
no
mom
problems.
and dad were well appreciated
Yeah.
in town, and I think I remember those dogs, right?
Yep.
You always had a dog at your place.
Yep. We had a big golden mix. Fred was his name, and then
One that yapped all the time. As soon as I came by on the road, he's yet barking.
oh, that's mine today.
Oh, that's yours today. Oh, okay. But I remember one there that was always coming out
Yeah.
at the door there.
That must have been Fred because the spaniel, he'd go right to the edge of the property line and stop. And that was Mom's lifeline because she used to take him for a walk
Right. You're right.
around the
You're
arena
right.
all the time.
You're right. Yes, she did.
But
You're
she
right.
had to time it because if she went out at noon, all the kids from school would come over and talk to the dog. So she had to time it right that she couldn't go out during noon or recess time for the dog walk.
Okay. Thanks very much, Brian.
All right. Thank you very much, Glenn.
Thank you.